give full disclosure on that. This is actually a really cool cooler, pun intended, I guess. It's different from a standard cooler because it actually plugs into your car DC output. And while you're driving, you can have this thing cool down, not just to refrigeration temps, but even much further down to -4 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a really great deep freeze temperature. I want to talk to you a little bit about what makes this cooler great and what makes it necessarily not so great. So I'm going to give you a completely honest review of it and tell you how we're using it and how we're not using it. So the first thing I want to say is it's got a really great build quality, and I do really like the latch, how it actually has a couple of clips right here that it doesn't, you have to actually lift it out to pull it up. The color looks really sharp, but this is one of my huge gripes with cooler companies is they tend to overdo it with cool factor, the look of making things look really cool. What I mean by that is in the Alabama or Texas sun, this lid is going to get 150 degrees, and then you're going to end up having to spend a ton of energy to keep it cool. The sides are the same. So if it were up to me, every single cooler on the market would be made out of white material, and that's it. For example, I've got an Igloo cooler, and it had this navy blue or dark Texas blue color on the lid, and by the time I got it out of the store, across the long parking lot and into my truck, the lid was screeching hot and it already warped. SetPower, maybe you guys make some white ones. If it's going to be outside, it needs to not be black. That's probably my biggest gripe about this unit. As far as cooling goes, this thing is fantastic. Now, I'm going to open it up and show you in here. We've got quite a bit of room. On the left side, I've got this one set to refrigeration. And this is a really great thing to mention. It's a dual compartment, so you can actually set independently. The left side can be refrigeration, the right side can be freezing, vice versa. They can both be freezing, they can both be refrigeration. You can even turn one side off completely and just have the other side going if that's what you want to do in order to save on energy. But we're not utilizing a lot of this spacing here. There's a lot of extra. This thing shines with popsicles. I don't even know what we have in here. We got some fish sticks down here, broad pieces. See the frost coming off of this. We are 3 days into our vacation. And this thing, all of these have been in here. Well, not the popsicles, but all of this stuff has been in here the entire time. On the left side, we got plenty of room for drinks. You can see we can actually double stack cans. It's got enough height so you can double stack. So you could probably put 20 regular sized cans in here. These are the tall cans, regular water bottles in here. Plenty of room on top for other things. That's kind of how that thing fits like that. We've been using it as a little extra freezing space for some of these things that aren't going in the freezer. And then also to keep some drinks cool, or to actually cool them down and then move them to another freezer, or to another cooler rather. So why am I going to put them in here to cool them down and then take them out and put them into another cooler? The main reason is because we go down to the beach and this thing isn't practical at all for being on the beach. It's black, for one thing. Another thing is these vents right here on the side. These vents would get full of sand and probably end up causing problems. Then on top of all of that, kind of the main reason is that I would have to bring a battery or the AFRI unit that I've got, or the All Powers unit that I've got that I've done some video reviews on. You guys check those out later after this if you're interested in any of those. I would actually have to take down a power source just so that it didn't warm up my drinks, because I don't think it has, and it could, I don't know. I haven't actually tested this out, so I don't want to speak before trying it, but I imagine the walls are not as thick of insulation as in regular cooler because it has the active cooling built in. So it's not a great beach cooler. Where does it shine? I think it shines for cross-country trips where you have frozen things that need to stay frozen, and you actually want to make sure that your bag of French fries aren't all soggy or your fish sticks are wet, whatever it is, so that when you throw them back into the freezer, when you get where you're going, they don't freeze into a solid lump. So that part is really cool. And I think that's a huge advantage over the traditional cooler. Another thing that I love about it is that there's no ice in here to melt. So whenever we end up getting where we're going or halfway there, we don't end up with soggy, wet food in the bottom, which is always frustrating. And then you always end up with that open thing of lunch meat that falls to the bottom, and then it fills up with water, and then you end up throwing the whole thing away and wasting, $12 worth of lunch meat. So that's frustrating. Another place that it really shines is with popsicle. Now you see right here, I've got some of these popsicles in here. I don't care who you are, what you do, what you put into a cooler. If you spend a few hours outside with your popsicles in a standard cooler, they're going to start losing their frozenness. They're going to start rising in temperature, and then they're going to end up being more thawed than you'd actually want. So we've taken this to the lake, and we'll leave it in the back of the car, and we'll plug it in. And then when we go out on the boat, we come back, sitting right here in the car, and our popsicles are frozen. So that's really cool. I like that a lot. Now, as far as the size is concerned, this is the PT30. It has 30 liters, like 31 quarts, or however that works out. It's not really that big. So it has its place. We have a family of 6. We've got 4 boys, and it's not really big enough for us when we travel long distances. We took 2 coolers. We took this one, and we took a standard cooler next to it. This held all of our frozen foods, which was awesome. And then the other cooler held all of our regular refrigerated foods. We have an Expedition EL, which is the suburban size. So we actually have 28 inches back here between the high side of this chair and then like where we have the door coming down. So we actually put this guy sideways like this, and it fits just fine. I would love to have one that's twice this size. I think that would be a sweet spot for a family of 6. Now we have food allergies, and so my children, when we're traveling, we have to take all of their food, or we have to hope that wherever we're going, we can find the things that we know we can get at home. So we always end up traveling with the food that we're going to eat while we're on the trip. Something like this allows us to make sure that we've got exactly what we need, and we can keep it cool, and it doesn't spoil. It's got really precise touch menu. I'll add in some B-roll here, and you can see that. You can adjust the temperature from -4 all the way up to 44 degrees, I believe it is. Pretty cool range, and both sides are independent, like I mentioned earlier. So that's great. When you first turn it on, it's going to turn on in Celsius. I guess that's the global standard, but we're in America. You look at it and it's like, this doesn't make any sense. There is a way with the button combinations to change it on the interface here. I wasn't actually able to follow the instructions and figure that out. However, when you open up the app, it is really easy, as you can see right here, and you can easily switch from Fahrenheit to Celsius, or from Celsius rather, back to Fahrenheit. Then also inside the app, you can set each individual chamber to whatever temperature you want. You can set it on to eco, you can set it on to max to cool down really fast and use more energy. So the app is absolutely a must if you're wanting just the convenience. Also, when you're driving, it's great to be up in the front and be able to check on the temperature and make sure that everything is looking good and that everything is cooled down. Because the last thing you want to do is assume that your cooler is cooling, you get where you're going, and all of your food is spoiled. So that's no good. I will see this vent here on the side. It does blow out rather hot, and the other side sucks the air in. So you want to make sure that when you're packing your car, that you don't end up packing it so tight that it can't breathe, because then you're going to end up ruining your cooler and your food. I think it would be really cool if these units were actually built so that you could take them to the beach. Every single one that I've seen, the screens down here, or the vents, are way down low, even on the really tall ones, the ones that are 50 quarts or greater. I think they should start putting those vents up toward the top, even if they needed to channel them in somehow. I don't know what they need to do. And then also put a finer mesh inside so that, like a removable screen that you could clean, like on an air conditioner, like a window unit, so that you could actually take it someplace where it's a little sandier and then not worry about ruining your cooler, because there's so much sand around here. I'm kind of worried about getting stuff in there, and I don't want to do that. So I've just been avoiding that. So all of them come with a cigarette lighter adapter, which is great. And that way, when you're driving or whatever, you can actually make sure that you're fully charged. Also, I want to point out, while I've been doing this video, it is dropped to show an E1 error, which means the battery is too low on the vehicle for it to continue cooling. So you can see it keeps trying to cycle through here. I can kind of hear it going off. It's really quiet, but I can hear it just a little bit. And it's a protection feature that's built in, which is really great, so you don't end up coming out here trying to start your car and it's dead. Now, there's 3 levels of that protection. The first one is like, look, we're not gonna let your battery go anywhere close to low. Another one is like, we'll let it kind of get pretty low. And the other one's like, we'll let it die. If I go over here and start the truck, this thing will fire back up, alternator will bring it back up, and it'll be good to go. Good news is I don't have to worry about the battery dying to where I can't start it with this unit. So Awesome built-in feature. Glad they thought about that. But the next thing is all of them come with a AC adapter. You just pop it off over here on the side. You plug this one in, and then you can plug this into your standard house outlet. So what was awesome about this is that before our trip, the night before, my wife, she went in and plugged this into the kitchen and then actually loaded the freezer. And after she loaded it up, everything stayed cool. Everything was ready to go. And in the morning, all I had to do was unplug it, walk it in here, slide it into the car. And then this was already plugged in down here. And then I just plugged it into the side of the unit. We took off and it was great. Everything was ready to go. That way we didn't have to think about 5 o'clock in the morning, filling the freezer, adding ice. That was great. And then also we went ahead and took this with us. And it's a good thing we did because when we showed up, the freezer that is in the unit, somehow they took all of the shelves out of it. So we ended up leaving most of our stuff in this freezer so that we could keep it frozen. And we basically just stuck water bottles in the other freezer down in the bottom of it. So overall, I just want to say this unit is actually pretty rock solid. I'm excited about it. I think we're going to use it a lot. I just wish it was a little bit bigger for my family. I think it's perfect. It's a sweet spot for a couple that maybe doesn't have kids or maybe has a young child. Like a family of 3 is probably max for utilizing this as their only cooler. But then also, like I said, if you're gonna have like a birthday party and you're gonna be outside and you're gonna be doing ice cream and popsicles hours after being there, this is an awesome option. Nothing gets soggy. Nothing gets wet in the bottom of it. It's really cool, and I'm super excited about seeing this technology advance. I've also noticed that these types of units are starting to pop up all over the place. So SetPower is definitely not the only one making them. I did see an Igloo version at Sam's Club. I spent a lot of time at Sam's apparently, but it was like $599. This one is about half the cost as that and just slightly smaller.